conservative message out to Detroit, whereas an area is a great state, Detroit is absolutely critical. And then I'll ask you to give a nice warm welcome to both Congressman John Molinaro and Tim Walberg.
Did it work? Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing today? All right, we get a little bit more excited. I'm the guy on the radio, so I got to get you fired up a little bit more. How you guys doing today? Are you excited for Kari Lake later on today? You excited for Kari? All right. Well, we're going to try and grill these two gentlemen here, and they are in the right place. I want to say thank you to the Congressman for being here with us today. A couple of folks who are always willing to come on the radio program and answer questions and answer the questions that you may have as well. So thank you to Congressman Molinaro and Congressman Walberg today. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be with you. So I think what I'd like to do is just start off by asking each of you a little bit about, obviously, the district that you represent and maybe what you're working on right now.
This is the dean of our delegation, Tim Walberg. Why don't you go first?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't necessarily mean I'm the old guy, but it probably fits too. Yeah. And I bring greetings from Jack Bergman, General Jack Bergman, who represents our 1st district. He texted me actually when I was on my way on the ferry this afternoon and said, "Dean, I can't make it." He said, "I've got a big cold." Well, I said, "Take care of it, whether whiskey helps or whatever."
That's right.
Do it, because we've got a lot of work these next probably 2 weeks, and we need you there. Yeah, I'm Tim Walberg. I represent Michigan's great 5th district. And you remember the 5th district? Raise your hand. Or raise your voice. Yeah. 5th district runs from Lake Erie on the east and all the way over to Lake Michigan on the west. The entire southern border. We're committed to keeping Buckeyes out.
Yeah.
And Hoosiers, guys. And I'm learning to not say bad things about Notre Dame, because it seems like that west side kind of likes Notre Dame as well. Okay, I love you. But I'm still a Big Ten. A lot of things he's on approps. I'm on energy and commerce, and also education and workforce. A lot to do there, dealing with things that we're concerned with family values, with parental control, education, workforce, people coming back to work, not spending their time at home, or just simply taking welfare assistance, all of that. Energy and commerce, energy, telecommunications, cyber issues, healthcare, all of that is there. But right now, we are wrapped up in dealing with the budget, the spending plan. We've made a commitment in the House that we would not do an Omni, we wouldn't do a minibus, we would do 12 separate appropriations bills. And we would do it in such a way that it would make a difference, i.e., start to spend down the deficit to ultimately spend down the debt. That's the direction we have to go. But in this process, we're going to use the opportunity, because these are must-pass bills. I'm talking to an appropriator here, and he says, yeah, all the work we do, and they do a lot of work. But they've been committed to keeping it at a level that we haven't heard before in a long time. And right now we're looking at $1.571 trillion top line. That takes us back almost to 2019 levels of spending. And if we do a CR, which will give us time to get all those 12 bills done, and not allow the Democrats to hijack and send something over that tries to jam us with a straight CR, it'll be at $1.4 trillion, which is 2019 levels and 35% reduction. So that's what we're doing. We thought we might not be here today because we would still be in D.C., but we had a little bit of problem come up amongst our own Republican body. that kind of stuttered it a bit. Just got off an over hour-long conference call with leadership and the rest of the conference, and it looks like we're moving forward again, which is a good thing. So Tuesday we'll be back. Steve Scalise, heard his voice. John and I have been praying for him. He's got cancer, blood cancer, treatable, but to force him to come back in a chemo weakened state, I hope our colleagues realize that love says, let's take care of our brother too. Frank Lucas, I heard on the phone from Oklahoma, he wasn't with us the last couple of weeks because he had a fight with a 1,000-pound bull, and he lost. But then he told us today, he was on the phone, he's coming back next week, broken pelvis, and et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
But that bull is hamburger, and he listed the number of hamburgers. He listed a number of patties. So he said, I still won in the end. And so I think that it's a wonderful conference we have. We only have a 4-vote margin. That's all we have. If we lose 4 of our own votes, like we lost on Thursday, we lost 5 that voted with the Democrats. That voted with the Democrats. And that wasn't Chip Roy. That wasn't Scott Perry. That wasn't Jim Jordan. That wasn't John Molinar. That wasn't Tim Walberg and other conservatives. But it cost us. And I think it was a learning process. We're coming back. We're not doing great battle in our party. We're trying to draw it together. And we know what we want to do. We know what you want us to do. And we want to keep doing it. Well, I'm not going to talk any further right now. John, go for it.
All right, well, thank you, Tim, and it's great to see everybody. My name is John Molinar. I represent Michigan's 2nd Congressional District, and great to see everyone out. And I have the privilege of serving on the Appropriations Committee. As Tim mentioned, we're in the process. And what this is basically our effort to reduce spending and hold the Biden administration accountable and actually get rid of many of the policies of the Biden administration through the appropriations process. Because the one thing needs to happen in Congress is that there has to be a spending plan that goes through. And this is where we negotiate those things. And so it's important that we are together as a team. And we're working through that as we are here, and we'll be back next week. But I also serve on the Select Committee on China and the Chinese Communist Party. And that's been a real honor, appointed by Speaker McCarthy. We have a lot going on in Michigan where we have a governor who's basically planting our entire economic development strategy on Chinese Communist Party affiliated investments. And I just want to give a shout out to those who are here in the room, the grassroots friends who have been active in speaking out against this, whether it's the Goshen plant, whether it's other investments. Thank you for your leadership.
The Marshall plant as well.
And I know Ambassador Pete Hoekstra is here. Where is Pete?
He is, yeah.
Pete's right over here. Pete, you know, he's been fighting with the grassroots. He and Ambassador Joe Sella have really done a lot of research that has helped arm our team to speak out against this. I know Andrew Fink, who is here at the conference, and I know a number of the state legislators who are working on legislation this week in Lansing. And so I'm really proud of our party for speaking out on this. In my role in this select committee is we've been looking at the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party, whether it's the economic threat, whether it's the human rights issues and abuses, or the national security risks that are involved with the Chinese Communist Party. And we have been sponsoring legislation. We've been holding the Biden administration accountable and continuing to speak out and lead on this effort. My district incorporates 20 counties. It goes from, on the southern part, Berry County. The northern area is Manistee County, and it kind of has 20 counties all across the state, including Midland and Gratiot County on the east side. So you can see it's a large geographic area. Big Rapids is part of that district, and that's where the governor has awarded over $700 million to this company that's affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party. And so we are continuing to speak out on that, doing everything we can on the federal level, and partnering with the grassroots and our state partners to try and fight this because we don't want to have our future held hostage to the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. I want to piggyback on that a bit because this has become such a big conversation, not just here in, of course, in West Michigan, in the state itself. We're seeing part of this, and the tentacles reach into this strike with the UAW now. We're seeing policies from the Biden administration, policies from the Whitmer administration that tend to go against what the workers and the unions are seeing, and of course, it's wreaking havoc on them. That's part of it. The other part, as you mentioned, national security interest, and that's another issue, but the environmental impact as well. Now, you both, Congressman, have signed on to the letter that went out last week asking the folks at Treasury to go back and take a closer look at this. Maybe you could explain, either one of you, what that letter is asking, that CFIUS review process, what that means, and people can really understand whether or not it's actually, that has gone through and they actually did their due diligence there.
Well, let me first explain, we use these terms, CFIUS. It's the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. It's headed by the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, and it has different cabinet members who are part of that. And their job is to review any investment by a foreign entity in the United States. And I will tell you that the Treasury Secretary, the Biden administration, has been asleep at the wheel. They have allowed these investments to happen without scrutiny, it's been very opaque, not much transparency at all. And they are allowing, in this case, Goshen, which is the parent company, is in China. The head of the parent company is the company secretary for the Chinese Communist Party. His son is the leader of the North American branch of the company. And CFIUS isn't even concerned that the fact that this investment is under 100 miles from Camp Grayling. And I'm not divulging any secrets here, but Camp Grayling is where we actually train military leaders for Taiwan. Mm-hmm. So here you have an entity less than 100 miles away, which will be an information gathering location for the Chinese Communist Party, where we're actually training Taiwanese military leaders for a potential invasion by China into Taiwan. So you can see there are many problems with this. The problem with CFIUS, and the reason we've spoken out and demanding answers on this, is because they're the ones who are supposed to protect the American people from these kinds of investments. Now, in North Dakota, there was a situation where a similar investment was being made. CFIUS again said, no jurisdiction here. Yeah. And it took the United States military to step in and say, no, we won't allow that investment here. So we're going to keep the fight, but as you know, the Biden administration, the Whitmer administration, they are all in trying to make these things happen. So that's why we're raising these issues in Congress.
And I'm in total agreement with that and signed on for that reason. We have a little bit different issue in Marshall, Michigan. We have Ford developing a plant there that they say they'll have 2,500 employees. Any politician worth his salt loves to have more employment opportunities in a district, especially from a company like Ford. But when they're doing what they're doing, developing battery technology that they don't have yet, and the only way they can get to that level is contract with a Chinese company, again, connected with a CCP. They have to be. They have to be connected with the CCP if China allows them to come over here and share anything with the United States or with its manufacturing companies, etc. That's a problem. I got another problem I'll get to very quickly as well. But that plant sits within 15 minutes of a key Air National Guard base with the key drone installation. With drones that I've seen being flown from Battle Creek, landing in Dubai, Qatar, and other places around this world. That's a concern.
Yes.
If they're that close, no matter how many Chinese operatives, employees are there, they're still subservient to the CCP. Now, I've had conversation with Ford, right up to the very top level. My concerns about that. Their statement was, we can't jump past them in battery technology unless we get that technology first, get that in mind, then we'll take it to Ion City and we'll develop a jump 10 years ahead. Well, that may be the case. Well, let's go to another issue I think we as Americans ought to be concerned about, and that's the fact that the federal government is mandating that we go to EV.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, that's a problem. Not simply because only 6% of our population has bought an EV, and most of those that bought it's their second vehicle. I pulled up to a group of farmers eating during harvesting and chided them for taking a break. Aren't they American enough to keep working? Eating fried chicken on company time? But when I said to them, I said, well, you know, I got to get to work. We got to figure a way to get to your combines to be EVs. That got them talking. Now, we have legislation I've offered that ought to be coming up next week or the following week that does away with the mandate that comes from Biden that by 2032, two-thirds of all of us will have to bought EVs. We've got to stop that. But all of this is moving a direction toward the Chinese, and you'll hear on the news that if we don't do this, we'll be buying Chinese cars. I won't be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the position we've got to take. Not against Ford. I want Ford to survive. I want them to thrive. I want more Ford operations. I want more GM.
Yeah.
I want to see that work. I want a UAW off the picket lines and back to work. I want fairness to reign. But in the end, I want America to achieve. And if China is going to put us in a hammerlock over the EV issue, that's another problem. And then last week in Education Workforce Committee, we had a wonderful hearing on the Confucius Institutes and the impact that China's having, not simply in our universities, and they're there, but now in our K-12 grades, with Confucius Institutes, where they're teaching American history the way China would teach it.
Yes.
And so those are all things we have to keep involved with. And I appreciate the work of a lot of you in going to school boards, in running for school boards. But all of this, China has told us that they are going to defeat us, and they're going to overtake us. And my friends in the military and the SEALs that we have a privilege of working with, they say, when the enemy tells you what they're going to do, believe them.
Yeah. I will tell you, this subject I think we could spend the entire day on because it is so serious. It's an invasion in a different way of another kind, but we're seeing some of these things happening at the border right now. Another big topic of conversation, we're talking with folks throughout the conference about this panel and what we might discuss is what's happening at the border and what we might do as a solution in Congress. Sure. Is there anything that can be done there, Congressman?
Well, you know, we talked about this process we're going through right now, working on getting the spending plan and negotiating with the Senate and the White House. The number one thing we have tried to make as part of this negotiation is securing the border. You know, we've passed legislation in the House, doesn't go anywhere in the Senate. The White House is AWOL. You know, we've had, since the Biden administration took over 6 million people cross the border illegally, and that's just the ones we can document.
Yeah.
Doesn't include all the ones that get away. Record levels of fentanyl, human trafficking, you name it, it's a disaster. They fought every positive thing the Trump administration did with Remain in Mexico, building you know, the wall, doing different things to prevent this from happening. In August, we had record numbers, over 230,000 people crossing the border in 1 month, 10,000 in 1 day. Can you? And this is documented. It doesn't count the ones who are actually trying not to get caught. So part of this negotiation, we're trying to do is to force the hand of the Senate and the White House to secure the border. Yeah. And, you know, the challenge is we've got to get our whole team working together on this, because if we don't vote as a team, we lose. The Senate will send us something, ram us with something, blame us for the shutdown, and, you know, our troops won't get paid, and it's a lose-lose scenario. The win-win is for us to work as a team, pass legislation that forces them to work on border security, and that's what our goal is. That's what we're doing going back this next week, and that's what we're going to be fighting for.
I just checked the notes that I'd taken in our conference call with the Speaker and the Majority Leader and our rest of our team. This last week, in the last 9 days, 100,000 plus crossed the border. Wow. 100,000 plus crossed the border in the last 9 days. Three people drowned in the last 3 days in the river. So some of your people that are concerned with human rights issues, those are 3 Venezuelans that were led to believe that America was wide open, and if they could get across, they'd have a special deal where they wouldn't be sent back, they'd be given work permits, and they wouldn't have any type of hearing for 18 months. That's what this administration is doing. So when you hear about the CR, it's not a CR we're talking about, because we're actually going to reduce spending by almost 35% over what presently is in place. But the focal point will be H.R. 2, will be the key part of that CR. You know what H.R. 2 is? That's Trump's borders plan. That's what John and I and our team unanimously passed, Republicans, not Democrats, passed it and sent it to the Senate earlier this year that they've sat upon. Can you imagine AOC, who was shouted down at a town hall in New York a week and a half ago? Yeah. AOC, our dear sister. In the Lord's eyes, she's our dear sister. Yes, yes. She's not come across the line yet, but God loves her. But she was shouted down, Schumer was shouted down, and others were shouted down. Just think, if we could get that CR through before the Democrats send us a clean CR with all the present policy, all the present spending, if we got that to them, that had the border security in it, not even talking about the reductions in spending, but the border security in it, what would happen with those New York members of Congress or senators that had to look at a vote on securing the border and then had to go back to New York if they voted against it? Mm-hmm. Strategically, I think it'd be tough for them. When the mayor of New York wouldn't even meet with the president. Yeah. Chicago is buying tents to put downtown in their city. I mean, strategically, if we had that, H.R. 2 over as our CR, whether you like CRs or not, and got it there before the Democrats could jam us, I don't think they'd be talking top-line messaging anymore in Michigan about inflation, about the border, and about the UAW, or they would be talking about all of those instead of Republicans shutting down government and not funding the military. So those are the issues we're trying to deal with. That's reality of what we're working towards. Those are strategic things, and a republic form of constitutional democracy is messy.
Constitutional republic.
Yeah.
We're not a democracy.
We're a republic. We're a constitutional.
All right, sir, do you have a question? I see you over there. Go ahead. I'll repeat it. Go ahead. Two great questions, and they deal with funding. One was about the IDs, possibly for folks coming across the border illegally. The other issues we've heard as well is that some of these folks are getting $2,000 per person. That's after room and board if they have a child with them, and that's like $50,000 a year. Is there a way to cut off some of these programs, cut off some of the funding he mentioned? That's the first question. Second question had to do with Taiwan, the funding of computer chips, and I think mostly about what it would take to bring some of that manufacturing here. Is that what I understand correctly?
Yeah, because, until we get computer chips plants in the United States built, because there's a couple of computer chip plants being built in Arizona, Iowa, and other states. But until we get those computer chips here, we're really dependent on Taiwan.
Yeah.
And so in the near future, there's, China is getting more and more aggressive surrounding the island of Taiwan.
So strategy about defense, and especially when it comes to that with China's situation. Congressman Molinar?
Sure. Let me just first talk about the Taiwan situation, because you're absolutely right. The high-end, most sophisticated chips, the vast majority of those are made in Taiwan. And so we have been working to bring more investments and partnerships back to the United States. It's important. And I think we're looking at more relying on partners like South Korea, Japan, others who are leaders in this area where we need international cooperation, finding strategic partners rather than being so heavily reliant on Taiwan. We don't ever want the Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing to fall in the hands of the CCP. That would be a disaster. So we are selling arms and equipment and helping the Taiwanese equip themselves. Now, I will say it's been very slow in terms of delivering them the weapons they need that they have purchased. But you're right, that's going to be very important. The strategy there is known as the porcupine strategy, the idea that every day Xi Jinping wakes up and starts thinking maybe today's the day we invade Taiwan, is he thinks, no, a little too risky, today's not the day. Because as you know, he has basically said he wants unification by force if necessary. So I think we can count on him making an effort towards that. The only thing that will prevent that is some of the strategic partnerships, as well as having them have the arms to defend themselves. In terms of the border, you're absolutely right. The Biden administration has basically made it easier, more attractive for people to come across illegally. And you know, we know that of the people who are actually released into this country, over half of them never show up for a hearing where they're supposed to do that. So it's basically catch, release, and they disappear. It's been a huge contentious issue in terms of, you know, there have been lawsuits on this, trying to figure out how we can force the hand of the Biden administration. We're trying to use the power of the purse to do that right now, and I think that's going to be our best option.
The power of the purse is actually what we're trying to do. He has lost some cases in court recently as well on his immigration policy. Congress doesn't have prosecutorial power. Our biggest power is the purse, and that's what we're attempting to do with the 12 appropriations bills put forward. No omnibus. We're committed to not accepting one or even voting on one from the Senate. And that's the way to do it. But again, you may know about this, but there's an election coming 2024. We've got to win that. We've got to win that. We've got to win that. If you hear nothing else, here we've got to win that. We've got all sorts of issues we can talk about, but the bottom line is we have to win that, and we have to have more out than they can bring to cheat. Well, let me just speak for John and myself here, maybe. Talk to your state legislatures about that. The state legislatures are responsible by the Constitution for the elections in any given state. You don't want the federal government taking over state elections.
One of the great things about coming together here, especially when we're able to hear from everybody, is everyone has a voice. You're going to be able to fight it out, duke it out. We know we've had a little bit of that today, but that's good because it's productive. I'm going to give you all both a chance to quick closing remarks here. Congressman Molinar, Congressman Wahlberg.
Well, first let me say thank you for coming to this conference. It's been wonderful being with all of you. My wife Amy and I have had a great time, and it's a beautiful place, and it's very great to exchange ideas and continue to work at building our team. It's an honor to serve you, the people of Michigan, and our country. We've got a lot of work to do. Keep us in your prayers. These next few weeks are going to be very intense in Washington, D.C., and we'd be grateful for that. The other thing I would say is tune in to Justin Barclay, whether you're in West Michigan. Now you can tune in the east part of Michigan, the Detroit area, and you can hear Justin Barclay in the mornings. So thank you for moderating, and great to be with all of you.
9:10 a.m. Truth, logic, common sense. We got to bring some of that to the folks on the east side who haven't had an outlet. But thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Congressman Wahlberg.
Yeah, I'll hitchhike on that. Support your conservative commentators.
Yeah.
Support your conservative commentators. And bring other people across. Bring other people to listen to them. That's why I love doing live town halls, to get people who disagree with me to hear that they don't have the market on truth. We have an intense period of time here to right the ship of state as much as we can, to show the people that there are common sense ideas based upon our Constitution, based upon our traditional values, based upon our God-given unalienable rights that ought to be perpetrated and continued in this country. It's a challenge to work with. The key is that we have to unite. We have to unite. Because 2024 is coming quick. We can't be left behind. No state can take anything for granted. And no state can have any luxury of thinking, if it's not my way, it's not the right way. We've got to work together. John and I are committed to that in our conference. I'm proud of our Michigan delegation in Congress. I wish we could all have been here. For various reasons, we can't. We hung together, and some of you will disagree with us, but we endorsed Donald Trump for president. And
I think he's going to win the poll.
now let me
I think
jump
they
back.
like that.
Let me jump back. The beauty of our team right now, we've got a lot of good people up there running for president. But I think we came down to the point. Wait a second. Wait a second. I know there are people in here that are supporting other good candidates. But in the end, we will decide that in the primary. Our team came together as our delegation, and we waited. Each of us have people in our district that support other candidates than Trump. Each of us. But in the end, as I looked at myself, I said, there is only one person that doesn't need on-the-job training, that on day one can enter into the presidency. On day one has the cell phone number for Xi, for Putin, for Un, for any of the others. And the only one who has shown us, as a president, he had policy that worked. Others might show us that, but he showed. Now, I said that not to get you at each other's throats, but realize we are Republicans together, working together. We'll iron it out in the primary, but then in the end, we vote for the Republican. We vote against Biden or whoever will be in that candidate position at that time. And if we don't do that, we don't deserve the term of Americans. Okay? I have the opportunity of being around longer in this political arena, probably in elected as well as private citizen involvement, precinct delegate, etc., than probably any of you in the room. And I know that we win and we lose, but we only win when we work together. And we got a lot of work for. God bless us.
Folks, who's looking forward to the results of the straw poll? The results of the straw poll coming up here in just a little bit. Congressman Molinar, one quick last word.
Just one last word. You know, we spoke out both very strongly against the Chinese Communist Party. And I never want that confused with us speaking out against people who are Chinese. Because there's a very important distinguishing thing here. We are speaking out against a system that oppresses people, the communist system. And the people who are the biggest victims of that are the Chinese people. So the media is going to try and draw you in. Already the governor of Illinois, because we've been speaking out on this, is saying we're xenophobic, we're anti-Chinese. No, we're anti-communist, and we think human beings deserve a better government. So just that in closing, thank you, and God bless you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, still to come, the results of the straw poll today. Kerry Lake, Jim Caviezel. One more time, Congressman Molinar, Congressman Wahlberg. Thank you for taking the time, gentlemen. God bless you, folks.
Good afternoon again. I want